Hello, class. You know what time it is. It's time to learn. This is American English File, 2nd edition, Book 3, Student Book, Part 3A, Race Across Miami. Okay, let's have fun. Part 1, Vocabulary and Speaking. Transportation. In pairs, you and your friend. Can you think of 4 different forms of public transportation in towns and cities in your country? I'll go first. For example, in the city where I live, Istanbul, we have, let me see, ferries. Yeah, that's my favorite way of transportation. We have the subway, the metro stations, and scooters and buses. There's one more. Yes, the traditional taxis, but they are not very cheap. All right, it's your turn. Talk about your town. Talk about the transportation in your city. Let's do it. All right, that was a very good discussion. Now, everyone, look. Public transportation and vehicles. Match the words and pictures. All right, for example, number 1, look. Platform. The rest is yours. Take your time and do it.
A few minutes later.
Great. Now I need you to listen and check.
2.2 Transportation. Public transportation and vehicles. 2,
Bus.
3,
Freeway.
9,
Light rail.
1,
Platform.
8,
Scooter.
4,
Subway.
6,
Train.
7,
Truck.
5.
Van.
All right, you did great. But we're not done yet. Let's do another one. Everyone, compound nouns. First, read this definition. Let me read it for you. Compound nouns are 2 nouns together, where the first noun describes the second. For example, e.g. means for example. A child seat, a seat for a child. A bus stop, a place for buses to stop, etc. In compound nouns, the first noun is stressed more strongly than the second. There are many compound nouns related to road travel. Okay, now you know what is compound noun. A. Complete the compound nouns. For example, look, lane is crossed out. Number 1, bicycle lane. Again, this is your turn. Take your time and do it.
A few moments later.
Awesome. Now I need you to listen and check again.
2.3 On the road. 1,
Bicycle lane.
2,
Car crash.
3,
Crosswalk.
4,
Gas station.
5,
Parking ticket.
6,
Pedestrian zone.
7,
Road work.
8,
Rush hour.
9,
Seat belt.
10,
Speed camera.
11,
Speed limit.
12,
Taxi stand.
13,
Traffic light.
14,
Traffic jam.
And there you have it. Compound nouns. Now I've got one more thing to teach you here. How long does it take? Everybody read this box and this box. How long does it take? It takes about an hour to get from Princeton to New York City by train. It took me more than an hour to get to work yesterday. how long does it take you to get to school? All right, so you use take plus person plus time plus to get to talk about the duration of a trip, etc. One more, phrasal verbs. Learn these phrasal verbs connected with transportation and travel. Okay, the first one, set off. We set off at 7 o'clock in the morning to try to avoid the traffic. Right? 7 in the morning. Leave on a trip. Set off. I arrive at 8:15. Do you think you could pick me up at the station? Go somewhere in a car and get him or her, etc. Pick up or pick someone up. I got on the wrong bus and I ended up on the opposite side of town. Find yourself in a place or a situation that you did not expect. Ended up. All right? We're running out of gas. Let's stop at the next gas station. Running out of something. It means finish your supply of something. Watch out. Look out. You're going to crash. All right? So be careful or pay attention to something dangerous. For example, watch out. Yeah? Very good. We're done here. Let's move. Great. Part 2. Pronunciation. Everybody, we have 3 sounds. Look at the pictures. Do you know any of these sounds? Okay. Listen first.
2.4.
Shower. Sh.
Jazz. J.
Chess. Ch.
Okay. So we have she, je, she. Okay. Write 3 words from the list in each column. All right? I'm not going to interfere. This is your gig. Do it yourself. Great. Now I need you to listen and check.
2.5.
Shower. Sh. Crash. Rush. Station.
Jazz. J. Bridge. Dangerous. Traffic jam.
Chess. Ch. Adventure. Catch. Each.
Okay, very nice. One more thing. Listen to the pairs of words. Can you hear the difference? Practice saying them. Okay, first listen.
2.6. 1. A.
Cheap.
B.
Jeep.
2. A.
Chain.
B.
Jane.
3. A.
Choke.
B.
Joke.
4. A.
Ship.
B.
Chip.
5. A.
Shoes.
B.
Choose.
6. A.
Wash.
B.
Watch.
Awesome. Okay, let me test you. I need you to listen and circle the word you hear. Let's do it.
2.7. 1.
Jeep.
2.
Chain.
3.
Joke.
4.
Chip.
5.
Shoes.
6.
Watch.
Awesome. Very good. You're getting the hang of this. Now, I need you to listen and write 5 sentences for me. Can you do that? Let's figure out.
2.8. 1.
Do you like potato chips?
2.
I'm going to wash it.
3.
You choose.
4.
Don't joke about it.
5.
Is it cheap?
Okay, well done. Check your answers with your friends. These are the sentences. Well done. You never cease to amaze me. Let's continue. Part 3. Reading and listening. Everyone, you are going to read about a race that the car show Top Gear organized across the US state of Florida. Read the introduction and answer the questions. All right, first, take your time and read the questions, everyone. Okay, now it's your turn. Read the introduction and write the answers. I'm gonna wait.
6.5 hours later.
Great. Top Gear challenge. What's the fastest way to get across Florida? On Top Gear, a very popular TV series about cars and driving, they decided to organize a race across Florida to find the quickest way to cross a busy state. The idea was to start from Miami in the southwestern part of the tip of Florida and to finish the race at the southernmost point of the US, Key West, a trip of 160 miles. 3 possible forms of transportation were chosen: a motorboat, a car, and a combination of transportation. One of the show's hosts, Rutledge Wood, took the motorboat, and his colleague, Adam Ferrara, took the car, a 2010 Lotus Evora. Tanner Faust took different kinds of transportation. His trip involved getting a taxi to the airport where he flew in a seaplane. Then he rented a scooter. They set off from Jones Boatyard on the Miami River. Okay, so let's go to the first question. Where do they have to go from? Where to? Well, they go from Jones Boatyard on the Miami River to the southernmost point in the US, Key West. Number 2. What are the 3 methods of transportation? Well, a motorboat, a car, and a combination of transportation, including a taxi, an airplane, and a scooter. And the 2 other questions are directly to you. Which one do you think will be the fastest? Why? Write your answers and remember them. And number 4, in what order do you think the other 2 will arrive? Why? Again, I need you to write your answers to 3 and 4 and remember them. Let's go. Now you're going to read and listen to the stories about the trips. Rutledge in the motorboat, Adam in the car. First, read about the trips by motorboat and car. Do you still think your predictions in 3A are right? Okay, I told you to remember your predictions and write them down. Enough with the introductions. Now it's time to read the stories. We have Rutledge in the motorboat and Adam in the car. Okay, first I need you to read about the trips and check your predictions. Remember, I told you to write them down and to remember them. Now, I need you to read the 2 trips again and answer the questions with R for Rutledge or A for Adam. You know the drill. It's your turn. Read it and answer it.
Tomorrow.
Okay, now let's read it together. Rutledge in the motorboat. His trip began in the Miami River. For the first hour, there was a speed limit of 7 miles an hour because of the enforced no-wake zone in the river. Once the boat passed through the Biscayne Bay and went under the Rickenbacker Bridge, he entered open water. Rutledge increased the boat speed to over 90 miles an hour and made up the time he lost on the Miami River. Approximately 60 miles from the finish line, Rutledge was ahead of Adam and Tanner, but he had to stop for gas if he wanted to reach the finish line in Key West. In the 15 minutes it took to refuel the boat, Adam passed Rutledge in the car and took the lead. Once Rutledge was back on the open water, there were a lot of big waves, but he was able to pass Adam near 7 Mile Bridge just outside of Key West. Unfortunately for both Rutledge and Adam, Tanner flew over both of them in the seaplane at about the same time. Now Tanner was in the best position to win. Each racer was only miles from the finish line in Key West. Who would win? All right, now let's read about Adam. Adam started off okay. He wasn't driving fast because he was going the speed limit. However, after an hour, Adam decided that he was going too slowly. He increased his speed to 75 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. As Adam passed through a small town, he was stopped by the police. They were angry that Adam was speeding, and it meant that Adam lost many valuable minutes. Another problem Adam had was that his GPS was programmed to give directions in Spanish instead of English. This made finding his way to Key West difficult. As Adam finally approached Key West, the traffic was getting worse. He was worried about getting stuck so close to the finish line. Only 3 miles to go. All right, check your answers with your friends. Who went much faster in the later part of his trip? Of course, R. Rutledge. Who did something illegal? Adam. Who went more slowly in the later part of his trip? Again, Adam. Who had to stop for more gas? Rutledge. Who couldn't understand the directions spoken by the GPS? Adam. It was in Spanish, I think. And who was in the lead for most of the race? Of course, Rutledge in the motorboat. Well done, but we didn't hear about Tanner. Let's check Tanner out. Tanner in the seaplane. Now listen to what happened to Tanner. Follow his route on the map. Okay? You can take notes as well. And this is the glossary. 1 mile, the unit of distance used in the US and the UK. 1.6 kilometers. 160 miles is 257 kilometers. Seaplane, an airplane that can take off from the water or the land. No wake zone, an area of water where the boats must travel slowly to avoid making waves. All right, that's the glossary for you. Now I need you to listen and take notes as well. Let's do it.
2.9.
Tanner took a taxi from the boatyard to the airport where the seaplane was leaving from. It took 45 minutes to get from the boatyard to the airport. Once he got on the seaplane, Tanner quickly made up the time he spent riding in the taxi. With the plane flying close to 100 miles an hour, Tanner caught up to Rutledge and Adam near 7 Mile Bridge. After landing at the airport in Key West, Tanner rented a scooter for the last 3 miles of the race. Just a few more minutes until he arrived at the southernmost point of the U.S.
All right, very good. Check your notes with your friends. So what happened? Tanner took a taxi from the boatyard to the airport where the seaplane was leaving from. After landing at the airport in Key West, he rented a scooter for the last 3 miles of the race to arrive at the southernmost point of the US. All right, now I need you to do this. With a partner, write down the order in which you think the 3 people arrived. Okay, write your order. Now listen to what happened. What order did they arrive in? Okay, so who came first, who came second, and who came third? Listen and write this one.
2.10.
Rutledge Wood, who had traveled in the boat, ran from the Key West boatyard to the streets of Key West. After running for a few minutes in the heat, he hailed a taxi, which brought him to the southernmost marker in Key West and the U.S. Unfortunately, Adam and Tanner were already standing next to the marker. Rutledge couldn't believe it. He looked at the other men who were standing nearby, laughing. It turns out that Adam, traveling in the Lotus Evora, had reached the Key West marker just seconds before Tanner arrived on his rented scooter. Adam's car had won, which is a good thing because Top Gear is, after all, a program about cars. Tanner's combination of taxi, seaplane, and scooter arrived second, several minutes before Rutledge, who ended his boat trip with a ride in a taxi.
All right, great. So that's the sequence. Adam by car, Tanner, taxi, airplane, and scooter, and Rutledge by the motorboat. That's all there is to it. You did great. Enough about racing. Let's learn some grammar. Comparatives and superlatives. Everybody read the sentences. Are the highlighted phrases right or wrong? Write a check or an X next to them and correct the wrong sentences. Well, let's do this one together, me and you. Number 1. What's the quicker way to get around Miami? Well, you should say, what's the quickest way? Number 2, driving is more boring than going by train. It's right. Number 3, the boat was almost as fast than the bike. No, you should say as fast as the bike. Number 4, West Hollywood is the same distance from Los Angeles as Southgate. It's all right. Number 5, there aren't as much trains as there were before on this line. There aren't as many trains as there were, right? Because you can count the trains. Number 6, it was the more exciting trip I've ever taken. It was the most exciting trip that I've ever taken. Number 7, the worst time of the day to travel in New York City is between 7:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. It's okay. And the last one, women drive more careful than men. Well, you should say women drive more carefully than men. It's an adverb because adverb describes the action. Yeah? Well done. Good. You have the basics right. That's good news. I need you to listen and practice. Let's do it.
2.11. 1.
My sister is a little taller than me.
San Francisco is more expensive than Chicago.
This test is less difficult than the last one.
Olive oil is better for you than butter.
2.
The new sofa isn't as comfortable as the old one.
I don't have as many books as I used to.
All right, great. But that's the start. So we use comparative adjectives to compare two people, places, things, etc. All right? Regular comparative adjectives. Look, old, older, big, bigger, easy, easier, modern, more modern, difficult, more difficult. And we have the irregular ones. For example, good, better, bad, worse, far, farther, or further. So, one syllable adjectives ending in ed. Bored, more bored. Stressed, more stressed. Tired, more tired. Okay, and we can also use not as adjective plus as to make comparisons. Right? For example, the new sofa isn't as comfortable as the old one. All right, you have the basics, as I told you. Object pronouns, me, him, etc. after then and as. After then or as, we can use an object pronoun, me, him, her, etc. or a subject pronoun, I, he, she, plus auxiliary verb. For example, she's taller than me, or she's taller than I am, or they are not as busy as us, or they're not as busy as we are. All right? And we have the same as. We use the same as to say that two people, places, things are identical, the same, no difference. For example, her dress is the same as mine. It means that we are wearing the same dress, or we have the same dress. Don't go anywhere. There's more. Follow me. Comparing two actions. Let's do it.
2.12. 1.
My father drives faster than me.
You walk more quickly than I do.
Atlanta played worse today than last week.
2.
Max doesn't speak English as well as his wife does.
I don't earn as much as my boss.
All right. So we use comparative adverbs to compare two actions. And everybody, we use adverbs to describe actions to begin with, right? So regular comparative adverbs, spelling rules. Look, fast, faster, slowly, more slowly, carefully, more carefully. Irregular ones, well, better, badly, worse, right? We can also use not as plus adverb as to make comparisons. For example, look, Max doesn't speak English as well as his wife does. And one more thing, superlatives, my favorite. Everybody, listen to this one.
2.13.
Kevin is the tallest player on the team.
Tokyo is the most expensive city in the world.
The small bag is the least expensive.
Lucy is the best student in the class.
Who dresses the most stylishly in your family?
That's the worst we've ever played.
All right. You know about them because I have discussed them in the previous levels. But I'm going to say it again. We can use superlative adjectives and adverbs to compare people, things, or actions with all of their group. For example, look, Kevin is the tallest player on the team. Form superlatives like comparatives, but use est instead of er and most. Least instead of more or less. All right? We usually use the before superlatives. For example, the tallest, the most expensive. But you can also use possessive adjectives, my best friend, their most famous song. You can use these. We often use a superlative with present perfect plus ever. For example, it's the best book I've ever read. And in after superlatives. Use in, not of, before places after a superlative. It's the longest bridge in the world. It's the best beach in Florida. All right, you know the drill. It's time to practice. As always, I have two sets of exercises for you. A, complete with the comparative or superlative of the bold words, and then, if necessary. For example, what's the fastest way to get around Miami? All right, and B, complete with one word. Going by motorboat is more exciting than traveling by ferry. Now I need you to stop the video, take your time, do it yourself. Very good. Check your answers with your friends, put your heads together. Okay, number one, I think skiing is easier than horseback riding. Number two, a motorcycle is more powerful than a scooter. Number three, I think that traveling by train is the most relaxing form of transportation. Number four, you walk more slowly than I do. Number five, the worst time to travel is on holiday weekends. Number six, the farthest or the furthest I've ever driven is from Washington, D.C. to Chicago. Number seven, the London Underground is older than the subway in New York City. Number eight, this is the hottest bus I've ever been on. Number nine, of all my family, my mom is the best driver. All right, exercise B. Number one, a bus isn't as comfortable as a train. Number two, it's the most expensive car we have ever bought. Number three, the traffic was worse than we expected. Number four, this is the longest trip I've ever been on. Number five, he gets home late, but his wife arrives later than him. Number six, the most interesting place I've ever visited is Venice. Number 7, I leave home at the same time as my brother. Number 8, he drives more carefully than his girlfriend. He has never had an accident. And number 9, we don't go abroad as often as we used to. Number 10, what's the longest freeway in the US? And you did them all very good. You're smart. And you can be smarter if you train yourself. Let's go. Part 5. Pronunciation. Linking. What's linking? Everybody, we often link words together in English, especially when we speak fast. We link words. Number 1, when a word ends in a consonant sound and the next word begins with a vowel sound. For example, more exciting. Or 2, when a word ends in a consonant sound and the next word begins with the same consonant sound. For example, the fastest train. And number 3, when a word ends in T or D and the next word begins with T or D. For example, the biggest dog. All right, I need you to listen and practice. Let's see.
2.14. 1.
Riding a motorcycle is more exciting than driving.
2.
The fastest train only takes an hour and a half.
3.
It's more difficult to drive at night than during the day.
4.
My father's worse at driving than my mother.
5.
The most dangerous road in my town is the freeway.
All right, try to play it multiple times and repeat. Now, part B. Talk to a partner. For each group of 3 things, compare them using the bold adjectives. For example, for 1, decide which is the most dangerous, and then compare the other 2. Say why. All right? Let's check them together. Number 1, dangerous. Riding a bike, riding a motorcycle, driving. Number 2, easy. Learning to drive, learning to ride a bike, learning to ride a horse. Number 3, relaxing. Flying, traveling by train, driving. Number 4, difficult. Sleeping on a train, sleeping in a plane, sleeping on a bus. And number 5, boring. Being stuck in a traffic jam, waiting at an airport, or waiting for a bus. I'll give you an example. I think riding a bike is the most dangerous because sometimes drivers don't notice bike riders. Riding a motorcycle is more dangerous than driving. All right? Discuss these issues with your partner. Let's talk. All the way to part 6, listening. Everybody, read the text and then talk to a partner. Number 1, which of these things do you or people you know do when you're driving? Number 2, which do you think are the most dangerous? Number them 1 to 3. 1, the most dangerous, and of course, 3, the least dangerous. Number 3, which one do you think is the least dangerous? All right, read this. This is your gig. Take a guess. I'll be waiting.
Day 2.
All right, you're back. Now listen to a safety expert. Number the activities 1 to 7. Were your top 3 right? All right, you know the drill.
2.15.
And on tonight's program, we talked to Tom Dixon, who is an expert on road safety. Tom, new technology like GPS devices has meant new distractions for drivers, hasn't it?
That's right, Nikki. But it isn't just technology that's the problem. Car drivers do a lot of other things while they're driving that are dangerous and that can cause accidents. Remember, driver distraction is the #1 cause of road accidents.
Now, I know you've been doing a lot of tests with simulators. According to your tests, what's the most dangerous thing to do when you're driving?
The tests we did in a simulator showed that the most dangerous thing to do while you're driving is to send or receive a text message. This is incredibly dangerous, and it is, of course, illegal. In fact, research done by the police shows that this is more dangerous than drinking and driving.
Why is that?
Well, the reason is obvious. Many people use two hands to text, one to hold the phone and the other to type, which means that they don't have their hands on the wheel, and they're looking at the phone, not at the road. Even for people who can text with one hand, it's still extremely dangerous. In the tests we did in the simulator, 2 of the drivers crashed while texting.
And which is the next most dangerous?
The next most dangerous thing is to set or adjust your GPS. This is extremely hazardous too, because although you can do it with one hand, you still have to take your eyes off the road for a few seconds.
And number 3?
Number 3 was putting on makeup or doing your hair. In fact, this is something that people often do, especially women, of course, when they stop at traffic lights. But if they haven't finished when the lights change, they often continue when they start driving again. It's that fatal combination of just having one hand on the steering wheel and looking in the mirror, not at the road.
And number 4?
In 4th place, there are 2 activities that are equally dangerous. One of them is making a phone call on a cell phone. Our research showed that when people talk on the phone, they drive more slowly, which can be just as dangerous as driving fast. But their control of the car gets worse because they're concentrating on the phone call and not on what's happening on the road. But the other thing, which is just as dangerous as talking on your cell phone, is eating and drinking. In fact, if you do this, you double your chance of having an accident because eating and drinking always involves taking at least one hand off the steering wheel. And the thing that's most worrying here is that people don't think of this as a dangerous activity at all, and it isn't even illegal.
And in 5th, well, actually 6th place, it must be listening to music, but what kind?
Well, it's listening to music you know.
Oh, that's interesting.
We found in our tests that when drivers were listening to music they knew and liked, they drove either faster or slower, depending on whether the music was fast or slow.
So fast music made drivers drive faster.
Exactly. And a study in Canada also found that if the music was very loud, then drivers' reaction time was 20% slower. If you are listening to very loud music, you're twice as likely to go through a red light.
So the safest of all the things on the list is to listen to music we don't know.
Exactly. If we don't know the music, then it doesn't distract us. In this part of the tests, all drivers drove safely.
All right, great. Now I need you to check your answers with your friends. This is the sequence that I wrote. All right? Now compare your answers with mine. We're not done yet. I need you to listen again for more information about each activity and why it is dangerous. So, I need you to listen again and take notes. Are you ready? Let's do it.
2.15.
And on tonight's program, we talked to Tom Dixon, who is an expert on road safety. Tom, new technology like GPS devices has meant new distractions for drivers, hasn't it?
That's right, Nikki. But it isn't just technology that's the problem. Car drivers do a lot of other things while they're driving that are dangerous and that can cause accidents. Remember, driver distraction is the #1 cause of road accidents.
Now, I know you've been doing a lot of tests with simulators. According to your tests, what's the most dangerous thing to do when you're driving?
The tests we did in a simulator showed that the most dangerous thing to do while you're driving is to send or receive a text message. This is incredibly dangerous, and it is, of course, illegal. In fact, research done by the police shows that this is more dangerous than drinking and driving.
Why is that?
Well, the reason is obvious. Many people use two hands to text, one to hold the phone and the other to type, which means that they don't have their hands on the wheel, and they're looking at the phone, not at the road. Even for people who can text with one hand, it's still extremely dangerous. In the tests we did in the simulator, 2 of the drivers crashed while texting.
And which is the next most dangerous?
The next most dangerous thing is to set or adjust your GPS. This is extremely hazardous too, because although you can do it with one hand, you still have to take your eyes off the road for a few seconds.
And number 3?
Number 3 was putting on makeup or doing your hair. In fact, this is something that people often do, especially women, of course, when they stop at traffic lights. But if they haven't finished when the lights change, they often continue when they start driving again. It's that fatal combination of just having one hand on the steering wheel and looking in the mirror, not at the road.
And number 4?
In 4th place, there are 2 activities that are equally dangerous. One of them is making a phone call on a cell phone. Our research showed that when people talk on the phone, they drive more slowly, which can be just as dangerous as driving fast. But their control of the car gets worse because they're concentrating on the phone call and not on what's happening on the road. But the other thing, which is just as dangerous as talking on your cell phone, is eating and drinking. In fact, if you do this, you double your chance of having an accident because eating and drinking always involves taking at least one hand off the steering wheel. And the thing that's most worrying here is that people don't think of this as a dangerous activity at all, and it isn't even illegal.
And in 5th, well, actually 6th place, it must be listening to music, but what kind?
Well, it's listening to music you know.
Oh, that's interesting.
We found in our tests that when drivers were listening to music they knew and liked, they drove either faster or slower, depending on whether the music was fast or slow.
So fast music made drivers drive faster.
Exactly. And a study in Canada also found that if the music was very loud, then drivers' reaction time was 20% slower. If you are listening to very loud music, you're twice as likely to go through a red light.
So the safest of all the things on the list is to listen to music we don't know.
Exactly. If we don't know the music, then it doesn't distract us. In this part of the tests, all drivers drove safely.
All right, great. Now I need you to check your notes with your friends. These are my notes. Number 1, sending or receiving text messages. Many people use 2 hands and look at the phone, not the road. Number 2, setting or adjusting a GPS device. You use one hand and you take your eyes off the road. Number 3, doing your hair or putting on makeup. You use one hand and you look in the mirror, not the road. Talking on a cell phone, not hands-free. Your control of the car gets worse because you concentrate on the phone call and not on the road. Eating or drinking. You double your chances of having an accident because you only have one hand on the wheel. Number 6, listening to your favorite music. If the music is fast, people drive fast. If the music is slow, they drive slowly. If the music is loud, your reaction time is reduced. And the last point, listening to the music you don't know. It is much less distracting and safer than listening to the music you know. And that's all there is to it. You did great. And all the way to my personal favorite part, speaking. Everyone, Look at the statements below and decide whether you agree or disagree. Check the ones you agree with and put an X next to the ones you disagree with. Think about your reasons. All right, let's read the statements together. Slow drivers cause more accidents than fast drivers. Do you agree or disagree? Check if you agree, X if you disagree. People who drink and drive should lose their driver's license for life. Speed cameras do not stop accidents. Drivers who are over 70 are as dangerous as young drivers. Bike riders should have to wear helmets. The minimum age for riding a motorcycle should be 25. The speed limit on freeways should be lower. All right, just mark them, either true or false in your idea, in your opinion. Now, in groups or with your partner, give your opinions about each statement. Try to use expressions from the box. Do you agree? For example, agreeing and disagreeing. I agree. I don't agree, right? You don't say, for example, I am agree. No, I agree or I don't agree with this, all right? I think, I don't think. You're right or that's right. I completely agree or I totally disagree. You can use these expressions to help you. All right, you know what time it is. Time for you to talk. Now let's do some writing together. Everyone, an article for a magazine. Look at the 4 forms of public transportation in New York City. Which one do you think is probably the least expensive, the healthiest, the best if you want to see the sights of New York City, the safest to use at night? All right, we have the subway, double-decker bus, bike, and taxi. Take notes. We've got business to do. All right, read an article from an online magazine for foreign students about public transportation in New York City and check your answers to A. Then answer these questions from memory. Number 1, what can you use a Metro card for? Number 2, what kind of money do you have to use if you want to pay cash to ride a New York City bus? Number 3, what's the difference between a taxi and car service? All right, you know the drill. It's your turn. Time for me to wait.
Day 3.
Okay, you're back. Check your answers with your friends. There you have it. The least expensive way is the subway, or they call it the underground, or metro. The healthiest, bike. The best if you want to see New York City, double-decker bus. And the safest to use late at night is the taxi. And the answer to the first one, for the subway and buses, you have to use the Metro card. Number 2, cash, but no pennies and no paper money. And the last question, car service is a normal call which works for a company and which you have to call. It is much cheaper than a taxi. But we're not done yet. Follow me. Now, read the article again and fill in the blanks with a preposition from the list. Around, at, in, next to, on. You can use it twice. On the top of, and with. All right, let's do this one together. Me and you, my friend. Transportation in New York City. The subway. This is the quickest way to get around the city, and there are many subway stations all over New York City. The cheapest way to use the subway is to get a Metro card. This is like a phone card. You put money on it, and you can add more when you need to. Then you use it every time you get on the subway. You can buy Metro cards at subway stations, newsstands, and even from your employer. Buses. They can be quicker than the subway if there isn't too much traffic. The easiest way to use the buses like the subway is to just use your Metro card. You can buy a single ride ticket from machines next to some but not all bus stops. You can also pay cash, but no pennies and no paper money. When you get on the bus, traveling on the top of a private double-decker bus is also a good way to see New York City. Bikes. Bikes are starting to become more popular in New York City, especially with tourists and people who want to travel to parts of the city, like the waterfront areas where subways don't usually go. One of the newest bike share programs is called City Bike. When you rent a bike from City Bike, you get a key that looks like a flash drive. You can use the key at any City Bike kiosk and get a bike to ride for the day. Taxis and car service. New York City's yellow taxis are expensive, but they are comfortable, and the taxi drivers know shortcuts through the city to get you to places quickly. You usually tell the driver where you want to go when you get in the taxi. Car service is made up of normal cars that work for a company, and you have to call them ahead of time to pick you up. They are more expensive than taxis. Taxis and car service are probably the safest way to travel late at night. Very good. Now, I need you to write an article about transportation in your town or city for foreign students. Plan what headings you're going to use and what you want to say for each form of transportation. And at the same time, I need you to check your article for mistakes like grammar, vocabulary, punctuation, and spelling. This is your gig. And I want to give you some useful language. Transportation in your town. You can buy Metro cards at many places in New York City. You need a ticket or card before you get on the subway. You, people in general. Comparatives and superlatives. Buses aren't as quick as trains. Riding a bike is the cheapest way to get around. So you can use these to make your article more interesting. The rest is your job. And that is the practice for today. Well done, everyone. You never cease to amaze me. I need you to believe in yourself. You have much more potential. I need you to find your talent and monetize it. Do your best. I've got your back. If English is what you need to succeed, I'll do my best. That's a promise. Bye for now.